questions to keep myself aligned. Waste away the hours doing what I should, knowing that my soul tells me it's not for my own good.
So hi Jesse. So we're gonna get started. So right now, sitting with me, and I'm gonna ask you to talk louder. So sitting with me is one of my clients. Hi Brandon. And we're gonna call him D. All right. So D has been with me for a while. Hi Pamela. So D has been with me for a while. How long have we been working together now?
It's been almost a year.
So almost a year. Can you guys hear him? Let me know if you can hear him, okay? And so inside that year, we've done a lot of work. A lot of work. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about D, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about his the challenges that he came here with. See, she's saying they can only kind of hear you. Okay? You might have to like move.
All right.
Okay. So when he came to see me, he was his struggles and challenges were headaches, migraines, fibromyalgia. He was on antidepressants at the time. And how long have you had the migraines and the fibromyalgia at that time?
I guess it started about 25 or so years ago.
So 25 years of headaches, like to the migraine state, and the fibromyalgia. So the first thing we did, one of the first things is actually we did start you on CBD.
Yes.
In the first. So he was taking the 750 CBD that I carry. So that he was doing right away. Hi everyone that's coming in. And then what we had started doing was we had done a healing attunement. So we started off with a Reiki healing attunement. That was one of the first things that we did. And then we started the ball rolling after that, right? So for those of you who don't know what a Reiki healing attunement is, it's like getting attuned for Reiki, only you're not getting the symbols. But that energy is like flushing through you. So it's what I wanted to do was start a detox on him, okay? So that's what we had started with on the first session. After that, we found out a little bit more. So I want to sort of go into your dad a little bit at this point. So one of the biggest things that happened to him as a child was, do you want to tell them or do you want me to tell them?
You go ahead.
Okay. So one of the first things that happened to him as a child was his father had committed suicide. All right. And there's you and, you know, he had siblings. We're not going to get more specific than that. He had some siblings and his father committed suicide. And how old were you at the time? 25. So I need you to talk loud.
Sorry.
So 25 years old. So see here, like loud, 25. So 25 at the time when his father had done that. So the one thing that we did find out immediately, I felt like I had to do some muscle testing around that. So the first thing that we found out was that his father was an empath. Okay. And so is D. All right. We found that out too. Good. They can hear you. So the father, father was an empath. Now you have to understand, we're going to go back. How old are you now, D?
50.
50. So we're going back 50 years. People did not go for help at that time. So let's think back 50 years. First of all, to say you were an empath was not something that people said, nor did they even know about it, okay? His father was an empath. D is an empath. And especially with men, when they become, when they're feeling other people's stuff and they don't know what's wrong with them and there's really no explanation to what's going on with them, he became an alcoholic. And when that wasn't helping, which is very common for empaths, to look for something that will numb you, so you don't have to feel all of that stuff. So when that wasn't working and it wasn't enough, he then turned to ending his life. So this also, unfortunately, is not uncommon either with empaths, okay? Yes, it is very hard. That's Teresa. She's saying it's very hard being an empath to manage all the energies around the mind and the body. And that's even when you know you're an empath, right? To learn how to handle that, it's even harder when you don't know. When you don't know why you feel the way that you feel, all right? And especially in that day and age, men did not talk about their stuff.
That's correct, yeah.
Right? Very private, didn't talk about things like women barely talked about their stuff back then, right? So people just didn't divulge private things like that. They didn't have anywhere to go to talk about that stuff. So that was one big, I think, epiphany,
Yes.
right,
So it was.
in all of that. We also noted that you needed to do some inner child work. Okay, so we're doing this now. I want you, so we're going to stop right here, and I'm going to ask you, so at this point, I'm going to ask you to go back in your memory now. So at this point, you found this stuff out. You've realized that you're an empath too. We're going to start some inner child work. What are you thinking at this point? Like, what was your first mindset in all of this?
It was breaking new ground. I had not, like you said, 50 years ago, people didn't talk about their emotions. Well, I grew up in that atmosphere where your emotions were hidden. Basically built up walls around yourself so that you didn't have to expose yourself. Maybe it was so you didn't get hurt, just to survive sometimes in the household, but you just didn't experience and you didn't share your emotions. So that was hard for me initially.
Right. Okay, so now we're understanding that we went into some inner child work. And yep, the CBD so I'm getting that people use CBD, the marijuana vapor, like a lot of things to deal with anxiety. We've got a little bit of a different outlook here, but CBD, I honestly do believe that is a big part of it, because those of you who have studied CBD, and I studied it extensively before I would give it to any of my clients. So the CBD piece of it was, that's supposed to help to put the body into homeostasis. But what we were going to do on top of that is going to be to put the energy into homeostasis. And if we can put the energy into homeostasis and the subconscious and the mind, then the CBD doing its thing, putting the body into homeostasis, we've got a very good combination here of what we're doing to help somebody get over the F word. Okay? So after we did that, and we did some education on empaths, so I gave you strategies. I gave you a book to read. I gave you different things to do to understand how to handle your empathy.
Yep.
And how did that go for you? And what strategies do you think that worked the best for you?
I think it's opened a lot of doors and made me look internally so that I can process things differently. Before it would just be shut everything out and move on. Now, I can see sort of a trail behind me and see how to deal with things differently.
Okay, and what strategies do you do sort of on a daily basis now?
On a daily basis, I like meditation, I like Reiki, just being mindful, setting myself up as soon as you wake up in the morning, setting yourself up for a good day, looking at it and saying, this is going to be great. Where before, when you're full of pain, you're thinking, oh, this hurts and that hurts and it all hurts and this day's gonna suck, because it already does.
Right. So when he used to first come in, I'd always be saying, so, how you doing today? And I would get, okay, had a rough week. Sometimes he would come in with the migraine already. And now when he comes in, it's always excellent, awesome, had a great week. I'm like, what happened? Had a great week. So this is the difference and the change, okay? Now we worked on your sleep. So I did some hypnosis. So I did ego strengthening with you. We also did a lot of like the sleep recordings so that you could sleep at night. And then we started working with the EEC, which is the Enhanced Energy Communication. This is the piece that you need when you're working with fibromyalgia. Because, just to back up here, what I've discovered about fibromyalgia and why they can't help it is because they're looking for a physical reason for this. They're looking for conventional reasons for this. There's not even a proper medication that they can give you for this. So they're just testing different things on you. At that point, those medications also have their own negative energy to the body. All right, so you are just actually compounding onto the problem. Now, because Dee went through some stuff in his life, as well as his childhood feeling like where he didn't fit in because he was an empath. And that is very common for empathic children growing up, especially males, where they try to find a place to fit in and they can't. All right, so very, what am I gonna say, disconnected?
Yeah.
Growing up?
Yeah.
Okay, so now he's dealing with all this stuff. Now, if you think about negative energy, like, I'm gonna call them, let's talk about them like just balls, like marbles, okay? Sometimes some negative energy sits in our body and it's like the size of a marble. And some negative energy is the size of a golf ball. And some of it's like a baseball. And some of those negative energies that sit in our body are like the size of basketballs. Now, if you think about these different energies and the different things that happened to him in his lifetime and the different things that he experienced and the anger and the rage and all the different things that he was feeling, that stuff starts to jam itself into all of the joints and the organs of the body. That's what's causing the pain. It is manifesting because it's jammed up everywhere in the body. All right? But what are these things? Like, what is it? Just giving Reiki is not enough. All right? Reiki is great. But the triggers, the memories that keep playing, they are still there. So Reiki is acting like a cleanser, a detoxer. It's going in there and it's cleansing. But because the triggers and everything are still there, things are coming back, okay? It's getting all messed up in there again, okay? Those energies, those places, they found places to live and they're back, okay? So you've taken Reiki 1 now and Reiki 2. So he's done Reiki 1 and Reiki 2 and waiting for me to teach the masters to him. So he's doing that now. The next piece. So we started doing the unsettled emotions. So unsettled emotions are emotions, things, situations that we've been through already, right? Situations that we've been through already. The emotion part is gone, but the energy of the emotion is still with you. So what's happening is every time he thinks about it, he's triggered. He's triggered. He's triggered.
That's it.
Okay? So we started working on some of the words that came up for you was manipulated, right? That was a tough one.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did it feel when you first started doing these, like started releasing these emotions?
Surprising how much emotion I was feeling, releasing these things. Looking at it as just a word, it's far beyond that because it's deep inside you, and feeling that change inside of you. It's like an energetic change that just, I'm not sure how to describe it other than it's a fantastic feeling once it's gone, right?
But getting it out can be something.
Yes, for sure.
Right? So when we pulled up manipulated, what ended up happening, so once we know what the word is, and I do that through my muscle testing, I find out what the trigger is. So then we found it, we start going through the procedure to release it, and at this point, this can be a very emotional thing. And sometimes some emotions will take us, some triggers will take us 10 minutes to clear, and some of them I've had to send him home with, right, to get rid of because it's too emotional. Because those pictures, those memory, everything is coming up. You are almost seeing those things again in one way or another. So as you're pulling it out and releasing it, it can be a lot, right?
Some of them are pretty difficult.
So manipulated was one of them that we started getting into. We also went into, once I taught you how to do the muscle testing, we also went into us checking your vitamins, your supplements, the medications you were taking, so everything you were ingesting.
Yes.
Okay, so that's also a big thing. All right. So what was that like, going home and checking out all that stuff?
I'm happy to say that I'm on no medications at all, just vitamins, a few minerals, CBD, and I think it's changed my body so that it reacts differently. I can move better and sleep better. Doing the testing was interesting just to find it's like magic. Right? You're doing a testing on something and something is telling you, your energy is telling you whether it's good for you or not. Just trying to wrap your head around it the first few times you do it. It's like magic.
Right, it is. And did you test foods too?
Yes. So I given up on dairy and gluten and foods that were triggering me to have, pain throughout my body. So.
Right? So it's not just about the energy that's in the body, it's about what are we putting into the body? What are we putting on the body? Right? We have to look at this in all different layers. Right? There is the mind piece, there's the subconscious and our limiting beliefs, there's the energetic piece, and then there's the body piece. So there's all these different pieces that we had to make sure that we were making sure that what he was putting in his body, as well as, on your body, shampoos, like what are you using on your body? Because all of these things have chemicals, right? The next part was we started bringing home the wolves, right? We started bringing home the wolves. Now this part is really cool. So what is bringing home the wolves? Those of you that have seen me do it with Haley, well, we did a live on that. We actually brought one home. What that is when we're born, we are born with a ton of subpersonalities, like a ton of subpersonalities. Think of it like a 1,000-room mansion, right? So every room is a different emotion, different subpersonality. But what happens is we tend to throw away those subpersonalities as we grow up. Someone calls you greedy. You're like, I don't want to be greedy. Someone says you're selfish. I don't want to be selfish. Someone says, you look at your dad and he's a narcissist and you're like, I don't want to be bossy. I don't want to be thoughtless. I don't want to be selfish. I don't want to be mean. And you are just tossing away these subpersonalities. Now, back in shamanic times, there's still some shamans out there. It's very similar to soul retrieval. All right. So you're losing parts, fragments of your soul, fragments of your energy. You are tossing them away. Things happen. Dad commits suicide. We're tossing stuff away that's around that, right? So when we start doing that, you're not whole anymore, all right? You're missing pieces. And when you have to deal with something, you can't because you don't have the pieces to deal with it. Plus, what ends up happening is with our energy, what we resist persists. So if you throw away the bossy and you throw away the selfish and you throw away all this stuff, you're going to get it back either in the people that are around you or you are going to become those things. Okay? So that's how that works. So we need to bring them home. We need to retrieve them. All right? So that's something that we need to pay attention to. So the first one that we had to bring home for you was the pessimistic wolf. And I call them wolves because I need to do visual to bring it home, right? So the pessimistic wolf, right?
Yes.
How was it bringing home the pessimistic wolf?
Another difficult one. Just because I think my attitude at the time, being in pain constantly, was very pessimistic. You're looking at things and you're setting yourself up for the day. You're just miserable and you don't think you want to be miserable, but you're just making yourself miserable all the time. So you have a really bad attitude about things. And it's difficult.
Yeah, that one was a hard one. And then we did, what were some of the other ones that we did? There's so many of them. The next thing we did was crystals, right? So we got your crystal, the alexandrite. So we did get that you're wearing. The sodalite, which was, I believe, is your pendulum. Okay, so one of your pendulums. The emotional wolf. That was another one that we brought home.
Yes.
Right, another tough one to bring home. So we did reflexology, right? We did some reflexology sessions. We did the warrior session. Did we do the reflexology? We did the reflexology, or we were thinking about doing the reflex. Yeah, we did. So there was a whole bunch of stuff going on. So dealing with the body and the mind and the spirit and the energy and dealing with all of those levels. Now we also did, I asked you to energy cleanse your home.
Yes.
So how was that when you went in and you cleansed? Now there was something happened during that time, if you want to share that, when you did the cleansing of the house.
Yeah, there were times when I would feel different things as, my mind changed, as my energy changed. I would have, I'd say, energy spikes, things that would alert me as to something different going on. And as I was cleansing the house, there were certain rooms or certain areas that had more energy than others. So it was surprising. Very
Right.
surprising.
And you found stuff in your house too.
Yes.
We found an entity. He found an entity in the house. So we got rid of that. Now we also did a power animal journey, right? So we did some shamanic journeying as well. So we did a power animal journey, and we got what was it, a doe?
It was a deer, yeah.
Doe, a deer. So a deer. So we did get a deer for him, and that has its own beautiful energies we won't get into, but that was one of his animals. The reason why I love to do the animals is because we have them. It is one of our guides. Like, at least one of your guides is an animal. So when you get to know which one it is and what it's bringing to the table, there are times when you need it. You need it, especially as we're doing this healing. You need to have your animals with you and your guides with you. It's nice to be able to connect to them when you meditate.
Absolutely.
Right? Now, you went to the chiropractor. You were going back to the chiropractor then, and what was the chiropractor saying to you? At this point, we had been through like 11 or 12 sessions. So what did the chiropractor say to you?
I've had several people actually say this, that, as I was going more and more through this pain and, the bad stuff, I was looking worse and worse, and, people came up to me and commented, wow, well, I don't know what you're doing, but you don't look gray anymore. You seem to be holding it together, and chiropractor was the same. You're doing really well, and I'm not sure what you're doing, but keep doing it, and lots of positive reinforcement, just other people noticing.
And that's the beauty, right? So it starts to happen. And the reason why it works also so well is that because I'm not doing it to him. Like, I'm just letting him, I'm guiding him through it, but he's doing the work himself. And that point, because he's doing the work himself, his own self-healing, his own intentions, which are vital, are all being part of this, right? So it's not just me saying, I could surrogate for him, I could do all the work for him, but it's going to take twice as long, or if not more, because he's not engaged in that, right? So having him engaged in all of it made everything move like crazy speed, right? To me, like, even though it's been like almost a year, I mean, I think the F word was gone a while ago, and we're working on other things now, but it's just like amazing how fast it can work, right? And yet people will come to me still and be in the first session and be like, so I'll be fine after this session. I'm like, what? Like, you spent your whole life getting this way. It's going to take a little bit more than one session. But, to invest 6 months, 8 months out of your life to be free of pain, right? Because we're not coping. We're not learning coping techniques. We're not learning handling techniques. We're actually eliminating, we're realigning, we're changing, we're readjusting, we're reintegrating. So we're just doing some real renovating of that inner landscape, basically.
Yeah, it's been an incredible journey.
So now the other thing was we started looking at your creative outlets.
Yes.
So how has that been? So we wanted to bring out his creative side. We found that part of he wasn't being creative anymore, not for personal. Like, your work is creative, but you weren't being creative in your personal life.
Right. So I've always been interested in art and architecture and sculpture, and it's just got to the point where you stop doing things. If you do something, there's consequences, and the consequence was always pain or feeling terrible physically. So moving on from that, and then being able to get into that creative outlet again, it's been good.
Right? So another thing for the mind, for the body, for the sacral chakra, right? So you want to get that stuff going, because the other part of the sacral chakra is that's the one that we use for empathy, right? That's our big one for empathy, especially the back of that chakra. So you want to be able to make sure that it's good and strong, okay? And part of that is our creativity, right? So at this point, we were pretty much through most of your pain, but you were still getting migraines.
Yes.
Okay, so we were still getting migraines. And we did a forgiveness ritual. So that was a big one as well. So we did a huge ritual for that, and that one took some time to get through as well. We worked on your breathing, right? Diaphragmatic breathing. We all forget how to breathe. We're always breathing thoracic in here, so our body's always going into fight or flight, or we're just not getting as much oxygen that we need. We're not cleansing our blood, right? So cleansing our blood is very, very important. When we breathe in, when we breathe out, when we're doing it through our diaphragm, what we're doing is we're balancing our blood, right? We're balancing the acidity of our blood. If you are breathing thoracic, which most of us do, when you breathe thoracic, you are not doing that. It's not happening, okay? The other thing we did was we started working on autogenics, which was the body hypnosis, which was teaching your body a new domino effect. You know, and what that means is when something happens in our body, the very next thing is we know that once this happens, then this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, then this is going to happen. So we've trained our body into this domino effect, and the autogenics is a new domino effect of allowing your body to feel relaxed and warm, blood circulating.
Yes.
Because what are you doing when you go into pain?
You tighten everything up and close things down. So I found visualization and the autogenics, I can basically turn things around, stop the pain. You'll notice it coming on, and then just take a few minutes, and things are already done. Just work through it.
You work through it. Because we have the power to make ourselves sick and ill, and whatever those disease labels are that are out there. And we also have the power to make ourselves well. We can do either. But people seem to choose to go into the negative side of things, right? They want to like fall. Right? Why? Why do we do that?
I can't speak for other people, but I know myself, it seemed like I had limited options. You end up starting to get sick, and it just snowballs into something bigger, and you get sicker. You go see all the doctors, and they give you their advice and medications. But for myself, I know I just didn't understand my options.
You're saying they can't hear you, so they got you on full volume. So we need you a little bit louder.
Options is what I was talking about. Just going to doctors, medications, all these things that don't help the situation and leave you feeling frustrated and angry, and it just snowballs into more and more pain. So working through that and doing things to help yourself, opening up, seeing other options, like coming to you.
Right.
It was a big step for me because I had never, I didn't know much about hypnosis. I didn't know what else you did, but I'm so glad I came.
I'm everybody's last stop.
Which is funny. I was thinking about that today. The first time I was here, you said everybody comes here last, and
yeah,
everybody
comes here last.
Come here first.
They'll go through every conventional thing, every free thing. They will go through everything that they can do on their benefit package. They will go through all of that stuff until finally someone tells somebody, and I am their last stop, unfortunately. But definitely their last stop because they're well when they leave. So the next thing we did was we ignited your DNA, right? We really got our DNA going. So that's another thing that people don't know, is that when we're born, we only use 3% of our DNA, right? The other part, at one point, they used to call it junk DNA, right? There's no such thing as junk. Like, the creator doesn't make junk, right? That's what it is. It's like buying your computer with the basic programming. The 3% is the basic programming, all right? After that, the other 97% that's there is all of our upgrades. So that is available to us. We just have to know how to download it, right? We have to start knowing how to download what we need, right? So is that something that you still do, that DNA ignition? Because sometimes, they'll only give you a little bit, and then you need a little bit more and a little bit more. It's not like they download it all at once. You would just not know what to do with all of that. But
yeah, I think it kind of takes care of itself sometimes, because all of a sudden you'll have an epiphany about something, or you'll be doing something different. you've done it this way for so long, and then all of a sudden you do it a different way, and it just makes things better.
Right. So, you know, there's, like I said, lots of different levels of things going on here. We went through some gaps in your childhood. Have we filled those gaps yet? I think that's still stuff that we have to work on.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's still stuff that we need to work on. The other dark wolves that we brought home, what we call the shadow wolves, the other ones that we brought home were the loser, the blamer. Pessimistic came up again the second time, so I guess you didn't fully integrate that the first time, so it came back. We had to do it again. We did entity release work. So sometimes energies stick to us, right? They stick to us. And how do they stick to us? So here's one way. Let's say you're an alcoholic, and an alcoholic jumps out of the bar down the street and gets hit by a car, and he dies. And as his soul or energy leaves the body, they sense your energy. And they're like, oh, well, if I put a little piece of myself right there, then I can continue to drink or get that feeling of drinking. But now when somebody wants to quit drinking and they've got that entity attached to them, they can't. It's a problem. All right? Another way is sometimes it's just an energy that likes you, or it's an energy that knows you in some way. Once they leave, they put a piece of you. It could be a mind fragment of someone who's actually alive. I actually had one from my mom. You know, she kept telling me something after my dad died, and I kept hearing it in my head. It was actually like, I was like, why can't I shut her up? Like, why do I just hear her in my head all the time? It could be also from another life, right? You didn't do something nice to someone, and they've attached something to you, to your energy, right? So most of the population has this entity stuck to them that are not theirs. There are fragments stuck to them. So we went through and we did a cleansing of all the entities that were attached to you as well. There was stuff in your stomach, in your tailbone, in your ribs, the left part of your skull, the back of your neck, and your left shoulder blade.
Yes, I do recall.
So that was a huge one that we had to do. So it says, were the sessions done online or in person? In his case, they were done in person. But I work with people with this online too, because besides the one reflexology appointment and a couple of Reikis, which most of it I was talking rather than doing anything, where there's not a lot of contact, right? So I don't actually need to have someone physically here because there's not a lot of touching like going on. So I don't actually have to have someone physically here in front of me. We did a past life regression. So there was regression work, healing that he had to bring in. So what I'm trying to say to you is here, before I go through every single session that he had, what we're saying is it's on all levels. He brought stuff. He experienced stuff in this lifetime. He had entities. There was subpersonalities that he had released, or that you released that we had to bring back. There was triggers that had to be released. There was limiting beliefs that had to be changed. So there was like a barrage of different things that had to be done. Right? And the beauty of this is every single thing we did, we muscle tested it first.
Yes.
Right? So we didn't do anything without muscle testing it first. Right? We would think, we would talk it through and be like, oh, well, maybe we should do this, or let's try this for the next session. But every single thing was always muscle tested. There was nothing pretty much that we ever did that wasn't muscle tested.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay? So we found out a bunch of stuff in your past life that we had to correct. Oh, and then there was a really cool situation. So those of you that know me, I'm also a bit of a medium. So while he was in doing one of his release things, and I'm sitting here waiting for him to release it, I had seen him turn into a German soldier. So one of the things is if I stare at someone long enough, I can actually see what they look like in a previous life. So he was a German soldier. And how I knew it was German was because he had, they actually showed me like a Hitler mustache, but I knew that he wasn't Hitler. I just knew that was just to tell me it was German. And we went into that life. And that was a huge one. Do you want to say why? Loudly?
Sure. I was in a situation where I developed something that was unpleasant, and
He's talking about genocide, by the way.
it's unpleasant. Yeah, it was magnitudes of unpleasant, but it was. I was developing it naively almost, and it was used for something I wasn't intended for, and so. End of the story. I took my own life because it was used for something horrific.
So those of you that did not hear that, I will just sort of reiterate. So he went into a past life as a German soldier, saw himself making this, what is it, like a chemistry thing, this solution or whatever it was, bomb, whatever it was supposed to be. But they told him it was going to be for something else, and they ended up using it for genocide. And when he realized that and all of the damage and the lives that it took, he took his own life. So in these things that we find out about ourselves, there are also wisdom, because knowing this, knowing what you did, knowing what others did to you, there is healing to be done with that, okay? The interesting thing about energy is when we go back and we did like the forgiveness work in that lifetime for you to forgive yourself, when your soul left the body, right when it was leaving, we did some work. And I had your past self talk to your present self. There was some stuff that we did to heal that energy. Now, why would I want to heal energy from the past life? Because energy doesn't have any time, right? There's no time. The whole universe is only, like, there's no time clock like it is on Earth. So when we fix something in the past, we can't change what happened, but we can change the energy around it. So when we do that, that energy actually reflects in the present, okay? So it changes how he feels about things in the present, all right? It changes whatever energies were caused in him through that timeline in the present, all right? So that's one of the benefits of going back into a past life. So all of these things, when somebody is suffering from something that's chronic, when somebody is suffering from something that's called chronic, you can't just do one thing and expect it to help it, right? It's on so many levels and so many places in the body that all of those areas have to be taken care of, all right? So the migraines are gone, I'm thinking now, for the most part.
Had a few headaches, but they're really spaced out, so I am super happy.
Okay, well, you know what? Having one every once in a while is okay. What else are we doing? Oh, so at this point, you release stubbornness, right? So that was another thing that we had to release. But there was like a lot. So I'm not going to go through everything, but I'm just going through some key ones right now. Stubbornness was a big one. The lifeless wolf. We had to bring back the subpersonality of lifeless. Now, people ask me when I hear these things, like, why do I want to bring back lifeless? Why would I want to bring back the pessimist? Because you become that when you don't bring it back. What we resist persists, right? That's how quantum physics works. So if he was feeling lifeless, he was feeling like the pessimist. He was feeling manipulated, right? And he didn't have what he needed to deal with that, okay? So by bringing back those subpersonalities, that strengthens him. It creates something where he becomes more whole. So think of it like, I call them wolves. So think of it like a pack. You know, we're filling the pack up. We're bringing the wolves home. And once they're home, then he becomes empowered. He becomes strong. He can handle this stuff, right? Because he has what he needs. All the ingredients are there, okay? So lifeless was one of them. Disorganized was another. And they always give gifts too, because we talk to these energies and we find out from them, like, what are you going to bring to the table? Like, why do I want to bring you back? We don't just randomly bring back any wolf, but like, why do I want to bring you back? And they will tell you, this is what I'm going to bring to your life. If you bring me home, this is what's going to happen for you, right? And they tell you. So that's really cool too. Distrust, overwhelmed. These are just some of the emotions that we had to bring back. So now, So now, we're still working with things. We're still like fine tuning and playing, but the majority of the work is done. What is your path and purpose now? Like, what is it? Like, how has things changed for you? And I know we've discussed your path and purpose, and if you want to share that loudly, if you want to share that would be great. So what is it now that you're kind of sort of sitting with going, you know, what am I going to do now?
I see things differently now than I did before. It's like a light has been turned on and I can see things differently. So, you know, I'm getting older and thinking about the future and thinking about what I've been through and the gifts that you've given me and the gifts that I've discovered in myself. And I would love to share that with somebody, with more than, you know, I mean, I try to share it with my family and the people that know me, but maybe beyond that at some point.
And if you had any tips for anybody or something that you would want to say, listen, this is what you need to know, like what would that be?
Have an open mind, you know. Don't accept a diagnosis or prognosis. Don't accept that, you know, just because you have someone tell you that you have an incurable fibromyalgia, that's the end of it. Just keep looking, keep persisting, and you have all these things inside of you, and there's people like Aisha that can help you out, set you on a path. It's been a fantastic journey for me, and I know I'm not done, but I'm willing to take the next step, so just don't give up.
So for those of you, I'm thinking everyone heard him, and he's saying don't give up. Don't accept a diagnosis. Don't just say that, you know, that's it, I'm a victim to that. Remember that you got yourself there, you can get yourself out of there. There is always, always hope, okay? There is always, always, you just have to have the desire. You have to have the desire and the want. And if you've got that, you're like that's like the main ingredient. If you've got that, then anything I can do or someone like me can do for you is only going to help you. The only thing that you have to realize when you're doing this is that it takes more than one thing, right? So because in my case, when I went for help for things for myself, I went to 6 different people to get all the healing that I needed. So that's why when I opened up my own clinic, I said, no, I want to be one person, right, that does most of it for them so that they don't have to keep building rapport and relationships with each person. So keeping in mind that if you're not going to come to me and you're going to go to someone else, they really, first of all, they need to know something like enhanced energy communication. That's my protocol. So they need to know something like that. But it's more than just energy. It's more than just your body. It's more than just your mind. It's more than just your emotions. You have to deal with the whole package. It's more than just this present body. You know, there's so much going on behind the scenes. And if you can be open to that, if you can say, you know what, I'm just going to put this box that I put all my beliefs in for a second and just set it down and be like, okay, let's do this, right? It's that, or the option is you become a victim to it. You know, you live your life in pain. You live your life ill. And that's your option, right? That's it. That's what your options are. So that's what I've got for right now. So be the hero in your life. That's how you want to tell your story, right? Be the hero in your life. All right. So if anybody watches this later as well, just send in your comments and questions. And turn up the volume on the parts that you didn't hear. and I think I did reiterate a lot of it. But not everybody's as loud as me. I could like fill a stadium just by myself. It's not a good thing. So I'll talk to you all later. Have a great day. And please send me comments, questions, whatever you want to know. Or set up a free consultation. Do this for yourself. It's free. So set it up and let's talk about how we can help you. All right? It's 1 hour out of your life just to get educated. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Look at my reflection in the mirror. I see that it's not the person who lives inside of me. negativity. I'm shedding all the crap